We move on to public participation. We have a public forum, and I'd like to welcome Nick Usme, a Year 12 student at Geelong Grammar School in Melbourne, and his mother, Ms. Hafimi Abdul Hadi, who is a member of the Brunei Legislative Council, who are visiting Christchurch this week, and they will present to the council regarding the Peace Crane project. So I could invite them to come forward and take a seat at the table. You are most welcome. I'm sorry I wasn't available to meet you yesterday. I know that Councillor Ralph Manji and others, I know Yanni Johansson and Jimmy Chen met with you on my behalf. So thank you both very much for coming. I'm very excited about the fact that you agreed to come and present to the council. I'm not going to turn the clock on because I think this is such a wonderful presentation. Really thrilled to have you here, so welcome.
Sweet, thanks. Good morning, Honourable Mayor Leanne Dalziel and Honourable Council members, ladies and gentlemen, Kia ora. My name is Nick, as mentioned, and today I'm here in Christchurch to present these origami cranes as a sign of peace and hope from our school at Geelong Grammar. It was about 2 weeks after the attack on the 15th, where I just woke up and then thought to myself, oh, why not do something for Christchurch? Because in our school we're thought to always think about the outside world, see what's happening, and yeah, so I got together with a group of friends and said, yes, let's do something from Christchurch. So yeah, in total we made about 3,000 cranes, and sadly I only got to bring 2 boxes, one over there and one over here, which contains about 600 of them. And yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the council members that were involved with this project, and yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. How long did it take you to prepare them?
To prepare, I think about 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, had to gather all the boarding houses to contribute. So, yes.
So how many students participated in making them?
I think about 5,000 students.
Wow.
From grades 12 to prep. Yeah.
And some of them would never have made peace cranes before.
Nah. So one of the challenges were to actually teach people how to fold them. So we scheduled like meetings from about every fortnight to teach them how to do it.
It's fantastic. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And thank you too. You must be a very proud mother, but also a member of the Legislative Assembly of Brunei. I mean, welcome. As a former member of Parliament myself, it's a real honour and a privilege to have you here as well.
Yeah, thank you, May. I think for myself today, g'day everyone. I grew up in Australia, obviously. I have a linkage with New Zealand when I was quite young, having spent a bit of time in Bororua, Papakawhai area. I think today, this whole trip is actually just accompanying, I'm the accompanying parent. I don't actually have an official role for this trip. But I think at the same time, it's good to see the development that's happened in Christchurch and the fantastic development that's emerged after the crises that you've gone through over the past couple of years. It's very promising to see the immensity of the Christchurch community in the way that you've contributed to your own community building, and hopefully this is a first step that we can maybe do some interchange between our young people. I support a lot of youth entrepreneurship development in Brunei in the various roles that I hold. But like I said, today really is about Nick and what he's doing with the school. I think we're immensely proud as parents, but also as members of our community in Brunei. To actually participate in this region. And I think, the relationship between New Zealand and Brunei is very strong because we're both two little giants, I think, in the APEC region. So I think on behalf of myself as well as Nick, thanks for all the the warm hospitality that's been conveyed to us. We'll hopefully get to see some of the sites later on today. I haven't been here for about maybe 25 years, but it's definitely changed since I was much younger. I think in moving forward, I think I also want to extend a message of thanks to Virgin Australia that actually conveyed the boxes for us without any cost. So this is something that, as a corporate, I think that's their responsibility. So that's much appreciated. But once again, thank you very much for having us, and it's been a great honour as well being in front of the councillors of Christchurch. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else, would you like to say a few words, Ref, in response?
Yeah, no, just really appreciate Nick, you and your colleagues at Geelong Grammar for all the effort that you've put in. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to know how to contribute when you're far away, so the thought and obviously the care that's gone into creating those cranes, they look quite difficult to me, and that you're going to present them down at the mosque as well, so that's something that can hang around and be presented and shown there. So thanks to all your colleagues back at school, and it's great obviously to see that bigger relationship between Brunei and New Zealand being strengthened as well. So it's great to see you. Obviously you're being on APAC, and we've got APEC here in 2021, so
Inshallah.
that's something to look forward to as well. So hope you enjoy the rest of the trip.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just in terms of steps that you'd like to be taking for building that relationship between young, potentially Muslim people here in Christchurch, to provide that support and linkage with your own school and wider community in Melbourne, and potentially Brunei as well. Is that something that you'd like to see expanded?
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool to see, I guess, in the future. But yeah,
I often think that it's probably sometimes cheaper to fly to Melbourne than it is to Auckland. So I always feel that we're quite close to Melbourne. It's not that far away.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But also Brunei is such an important part of the APEC region. And I actually had the honour of meeting the Sultan of Brunei many years ago. He won't remember me.
You'd be surprised. He's got a pretty good memory.
As a very young Minister of Commerce back in the day, when I attended a forum on human capacity development, actually in Beijing, it's going back quite a way, but probably in 2002, something like that. So. Yanni, did you want to add something? Because I know that you particularly wanted this presentation today.
As the councillor for the Linwood Ward, I just wanted to extend a heartfelt thanks for caring and thinking of us and our city, our community, and the mosques and the victims. I just think it's really touching. I just acknowledge that Christchurch actually was the first city in New Zealand to become a peace city. So the peace cranes have a lovely synergy with what we're trying to achieve. And I think it's also fantastic, as has been said, that if we can support the sharing of cultural difference between young people from around the world towards our city and our community, then we will all be better for it. So thank you so much for your thoughts and for what you've done. It's really appreciated.
Yep, gives us great hope for the future. So look, thank you very much for your presentation. I look forward to see how this relationship develops. But when you go back to your school, in fact, I will send a letter that just acknowledging your presence here today, your gift to the city, or the school's gift to the city, the students. And to acknowledge them for what they've done and that connection that they've made. So thank you very, very much for agreeing to come in today and making it very real for the city as a whole.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Got time for a photo, Leanne?
Well, we'll have a photo with the whole council, won't we? If I come forward, then you could get...
Do you want me to take it on your phone, Nick?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Lovely. Tag everyone.
Yeah, good, I can take it round. Yeah. The crates?
We can all just grab some.
Yeah, so hold one.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, sorry.
So we just sort of...
Oh, was she? Okay. Oh, lovely.
Right,
Righty ho. Are we
warm
ready?
up.
Lovely.
Yeah?
Say re-election.
Right. Can everyone look forward and smile?
That's great.
Just one more. Is that one on portrait? Thank you.
Should we just leave these here for the date, maybe? Yeah, we'll just leave those here. Oh, yes. Oh, okay, come on. Thanks again, Jan.
Yeah. Well, I didn't.
I was hoping to be here on time.
Yeah, I know. All right, the next public participation, public forum is from Mr. Colin Stokes. Could you please come forward?
Good morning all.
Good morning.
Excuse me if I read this a bit fast, I've just got a bit much to get through, but I'll make it as clear as I possibly can read it. Last week I emailed you details of the misrepresentations in the confidential memorandum from the Chief Executive's Office to the Mayor and Deputy Mayor dated 15th August 2019. It's about the unlawful non-compliant works in the Yoldest subdivision and staff's failures and refusals to enforce compliance upon the consent holder as statutes require. The falsehoods and misrepresentations are irrefutable and well evidenced. I obtained the confidential memorandum under the Local Government Information Act, heavily redacted. It concedes the works were unlawful, but the extent of the unlawfulness and wrongdoing is omitted and grossly misrepresented. The unlawful works allow grossly non-complying and undersized stormwater design that intentionally makes the original landowner's stages of the consent impossible. This in breach of the consent and RMA and an offence under the Land Drainage Act. To cover this up, staff illicitly removed conditions from the consent that protected lower east land in favour of the council for stormwater basins. This is where the upstream road and the original landowner's catchments must go, but pipes were too small to convey the upstream stormwater there. Staff then forged what they purported was a variation consent for stormwater to run to basins uphill land west outside the consent, and where the basins are neither permitted or possible. No application was made for this. A plan showing this was simply attached to a variation for something else. The consent required road for the original landowner stages needed to descend 2.6 metres below ground level at its west end to fall toward the impossible west basins. Staff eventually had to concede their uphill west consent was never possible. Despite this, staff are still permitting the consent holder to rely on this uphill stormwater forgery to the west so as not to have to comply or enforce compliance with the east and other provisions. Staff advised me and others that staff will not enforce compliance with the downhill east stormwater nor the impossible west up stormwater forgery while laughing. Staff advised they will lapse our stages of the consent in 2024 because we can't progress them. This despite the RMA provides once a consent has been given effect to, which it has been, the consent does not lapse. Obligations of consents transfer with the consent to new consent holders. That's RMA 101. Staff know this, and it's contrary to what has been advised in previous meetings. Now, the consent holder, Infinity Oldest, and its major financier that manipulated the transfer of the property to the consent holder, also know this. They knew the conditions when they came in that has to be done. They also knew the works were non-compliant and unlawful. The financier that financed them into it was Dunedin City Council. Both Dunedin City Council and the new consent holder knew the unlawful subdivision works had been unlawfully designed and constructed to cheat me and others of our RMA interests in subdivision stages. In fact, Dunedin City Council, via its 100% owned Delta Utility Services Limited, is the entity that unlawfully constructed the undersized non-complying roading and stormwater infrastructure. Staff have sold their enforcement failures and problems as a private matter between me and or other neighbours to resolve with the original or the new consent holder at our cost. That we have to enforce compliance on them. That's false. It's a simple matter of council's statutory failure to enforce compliance with the consent upon the consent holder. The conditions require the consent holder to provide all roads and services at its cost. Upon compliance, original landowners can then develop their stages of the consent at their own costs. Now, in the memorandum that was sent to the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, staff misled that my main allegation is that I believe the RMA requires the council to enforce the consent holder to develop my land at its cost, rather than at my own cost. That's completely false and grossly misleading. Staff and the consent holder have unlawfully and intentionally made mine and other stages of the consent impossible. The only way to fix council's problem is for council to enforce compliance upon the consent holder, including remedying the unlawful non-complying works and the design, or providing compliance itself. That's the corollary position as advised by our lawyer Hans van Straven to the council. That if council refuses to enforce compliance upon the consent holder, they then step into the consent holder's shoes and have to provide that themselves as well as enforcement of it. Now, no one above the wrongdoing staff will meet me. That factually elevates theirs and the council's wrongdoings and the willful blindness to high authorities. That's unfortunate given our endless attempts to meet to assist the council to resolve its problems. No one will meet us. The General Manager won't, the Chief Executive won't, the Deputy Mayor won't, and the Mayor won't.
Thank you. Your time's up.
What I would say is that the new elected council need to fix this culture in the staff, that they cover up their wrongdoing. They have a policy of not allowing it.
Thank you.
The policy of the council, and it's that allows requires them to protect the staff, is actually helping the staff cover their mistakes.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, everyone. Good luck with the elections, and I'll see you next year.
Thank you.